You're listening to the Unsafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
Has provided us the following. He is Satan's answer to Jesus Christ. He is the second person of the evil Trinity. He is a Gentile. He's not Jewish. He is a Gentile. He's coming out of the sea, which is a picture of Gentile nations. He obtains political power through lying, treachery, and military might. In other words, he's a politician in the 21st century. I don't have to say much more than that.
When you open the book of Revelation, does it all feel too fantastical and crazy to be understood? There are a lot of wild pictures of dragons and beasts made of many kinds of animals. It can get a little overwhelming and confusing when you try to make sense of it. Well, don't worry. Pastor Ken is going to take the pictures found in Revelation 13 and give them an easy-to-understand framework in today's message. This message is for everyone who ever opened Revelation and thought, "What on earth?" Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Revelation chapter 13 as he begins his message, The Stuff of Nightmares.
Father, we thank you for your word, and we just thank you for the book of Revelation and the promise that you have, that a special blessing for those who study it and read it. And Lord, we just claim that blessing. We just ask that you would teach us of your word this evening and help us just to realize that the days are indeed short and you're coming at any second. Thank you, Lord. Amen. We're still in the book of Revelation, and we're still in chapter 13, and we're still talking about the beast. But Lord willing, we will finish talking about the beast, and then we'll talk about another beast. But tonight we're talking about the stuff of nightmares, literally. This is a kind of a return to Genesis 6, because when you start deconstructing the Greek and the language that's used and some of the terms that are used and other things that are within the scriptures, you start looking at this and you're going, there's something else going on about this guy. So Revelation 13, 1-8, let's take a look at that. And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. They worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who's able to wage war with him?" There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. Interesting guy, huh? So far, what have we learned about this guy? Our examination of the beast so far has provided us the following. He is Satan's answer to Jesus Christ. He is the second person of the evil Trinity. He is a Gentile. He's not Jewish. He is a Gentile. He's coming out of the sea, which is a picture of Gentile nations. He obtains political power through lying, treachery, and military might. In other words, he's a politician in the 21st century. I don't have to say much more than that. He is the leader of a 10-nation coalition, and he personally rules over 3 of these members himself. He's from the eastern side of the old Roman Empire, most likely from one of the nations that used to make up the Seleucid Empire. And this is the Roman Empire. The eastern side, it was Macedonia to Libya and over. And it's interesting to note that the largest extent of one of the caliphates included just about that entire area. The Seleucid Empire included everything north of Jerusalem, but at one point it did include Egypt. And then when you see all those nations involved in the specific place that it is, then you start looking at the table of nations, and this is a map of the table of nations from Genesis chapter 10, and you start comparing some of the nations that we're reading about and some of the things that we're seeing here in the scriptures, and all of a sudden your mind starts going to Ezekiel 38 because it's the same nations. And you start wondering, is that the same as the Gog-Magog war? Don't know. But the nations seem to align with the old Roman Empire, eastern side, as well as those nations that were prophesied in the war in Ezekiel 38. All throughout the book of Revelation, because of John's choice of words, when you look at the Old Testament references, there's also a strong overlay based upon where he is of Islamic strengths. The Islamic world is over this, because you see that their heads are going to be cut off. And then some of the words talk about ritualized slaughter. We've already talked about that. And then you see where this person is supposed to come from. And that Jesus himself uses Antiochus Epiphanes, who was from Syria, as an example. So again, you start saying there's a crossover between the Islamic world. And again, all the nations of the eastern side of the Roman Empire, with the exception of Israel, is now Islamic. Every single one of them. His military might will be known for being, and this is what, when you start seeing he's like this animal, and like this animal, he's like a leopard. His military might, he'll be highly mobile. There'll be a sizable army and ruthless. And it appears that the beast's forces may consist of augmented humans. And I'll indicate as to why, because the battlefield of just 2030, 2040 may include people who are cybernetically connected to computer systems for the purpose of being able to conduct war. His power is from Satan himself, because it looks like he's actually personally possessed by Satan. This is not a nice guy. He will survive an assassination attempt, and it'll look like it succeeds. But his physical appearance will be altered as a result of the assassination attempt. And the external appearance, when you look at what happens, it'll look like and feel like he rose from the dead. But the Bible doesn't say that. He says he has a deadly wound, but it doesn't say he comes from the dead. It says his wound is healed. It's entirely possible, based on what we see, that he may not be wholly human. He may not even be human genetically after this injury. That might be how he is healed. Many who follow him may be following in his footsteps. He may be augmented with cybernetic implants. Very possible. When we get to verse 15, and we start examining the language of verse 15, where it talks about language, but the word is not for intelligible language, then you start thinking, okay, there's something going on. And it could indeed be computerized, multiple personalities showing up all over, controlled by one individual through a cybernetic link. That's not science fiction, by the way. Okay? That would be transhumanist, human, plus just days of Noah stuff, Nephilim, Genesis 6. Back to Daniel 2 and his interpretation to Nebuchadnezzar. This gets into this. Anyway, in Daniel chapter 2, verses 42 and 43, Daniel is telling Nebuchadnezzar, here's what you dreamed and you can't remember, and nobody else can answer it, but God's got it for you. And he sees this giant statue that has all these different attributes. And the toes of the feet were partly of iron, partly of pottery, so that some of the kingdom will be strong and part of it will be brittle. And you have to look at that and say, okay, remember, this is 500 BC. We're trying to explain what he sees, what he recognizes, and he's explaining it with terms that he knows. And in that you saw the iron mixed with common clay, they will not combine with one another in the seed of men. That's weird. but they will not adhere to one another, even as the iron does not combine with pottery. Now, that's an English translation from the New American Standard Bible. Now, there's a reason why I say it's a coalition of 10 nations, because that statement in Daniel points to the fact that we may be talking about a group of nations that each nation has its own governmental setup. One might be a republic, another one might be just a flat-out dictatorship, another one might be an Islamic dictatorship. We don't know. And they don't get along together with each other. If they're all Islamic nations, how well do the Islamic nations get along with each other? They don't. Not one bit. So that's a possibility, that they have difficulty adhering to one another. But as you start digging into the Aramaic of Daniel, you find out it might be alluding to something else. So in the Septuagint is the Greek translation of the Aramaic, and it was translated around 220 BC. It says this in verses 40 to 43 of Daniel 2. And a fourth kingdom, mighty as iron, just as the iron overpowered everything, and as the iron destroyed every tree, so the earth will be shaken. And as you watched its feet, a portion partly of earthenware, a portion partly of iron, another kingdom made of two parts will be in it. And as you saw the iron mixed up together with the clay of an earthen vessel. As for the toes of the feet, a certain portion of iron and a certain portion was of potter's clay. And a certain part of the kingdom will be strong, and a certain part will be broken. And as you saw the iron mixed up together with the clay of the earthen vessel, they will be commingled into the offspring of mankind. Okay, now we're not talking about kingdoms. We're talking about something else. They will not be commingled in harmony, nor will they be favorably inclined toward one another, even just as the iron is not able to be mixed with the clay of an earthen vessel. The language, the translation, suddenly starts opening some doors that are very reminiscent of what was going on in Genesis 6. Now, this gives the beast a geopolitical issue of all these disparate governments. I get that. And Jesus referred to this, but he also referred to this time period as the days of Noah, like the days of Noah, being seen again in the last days. Could it be part of the reason that the beast does not die from his wound is he's not completely human anymore? He's been augmented. He, due to military reasons, has possibly become augmented or enhanced for purposes of combat, command, and control. And many of members of his military have been too. So conjecture, and people, some folks are looking at me like I've got things growing out of my ears. That's okay. I'll show you some stuff from the Department of Defense here in just a couple of minutes. Matthew 24:37, the coming of the Son of Man will be like the days of Noah. Why was Noah building a giant barge? Because there were a bunch of angels in Genesis 6 that descended and started having babies with human women, and these babies were called Nephilim. They were giants. They were cannibalistic. They were corrupting mankind. It was not really good. Luke, he says the same thing. Just as it happened in the days of Noah, so it'll be in the days of the Son of Man. And he talks about it. He says they're going to be eating, drinking, marrying, and given in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. In other words, life is normal until everything started happening. Noah enters the ark, and then all of a sudden life was not normal anymore. It was the same as happened in the days of Lot. And by the way, we're living in that right now too. They were eating, drinking, buying, they're selling and planting, and they were building. But on the day that Lot went out from Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. It'll be just like that the day that the Son of Man is revealed. So let's go back and look at Genesis 6. And I'm going to look at it in the Septuagint, okay? In the Septuagint version of Genesis 6, verses 1 to 4, because the English version has the personality of some of the translators, and some of the translators do not believe it's talking about angels. They believe it's people, okay? But when you go back to the original Hebrew, that's not the case. Noah lived 400 years, and Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it happened when humans began to become numerous upon the land, and they had daughters. The angels of God having seen the daughters of human, that they were beautiful, took for themselves women from all whom they picked out. So fallen angels descended, and by Hebrew tradition, they descended to Mount Hermon, which is north of Israel, the hills of Bashan, actually, and then started picking out women. The Lord God said, my breath will not at all reside in these humans for very long because they're flesh, but their days will be 120 years. That's how long it took Noah to build a barge. Now, giants were upon the land in those days, and after that, whenever the sons of God visited the daughters of humans, they fathered children for themselves. Those were the giants who were from long ago, the people of renown. They were doing genetic manipulation, and they were doing things that they should not be doing, and God has taken those fallen angels. They're currently in prison. We see that in Jude. We see that in 2 Peter. But the idea of an enhanced human being something which will take place in the future, we all want to say in the distant future. I hate to tell you this, it ain't the distant future. It's probably happening right now. It's a replay of what took place in Genesis 6, and it's not science fiction. This is not science fiction. And it's not as far off in the future as we may think. It's actually occurring in some circumstances today. At some level, it's already happening. There are experiments being done with DARPA where they're actually using mind control. They're implanting electrodes into people's brains, and they're able to control prostheses, hands and arms and legs. And it's wonderful. You watch, and people who have lost their arms and legs in combat, or people who never had an arm, now are able to work and are able to do things. There's actually a young lady who's a model who never had an arm. She now uses a prosthesis, and she works in New York as a model, and she uses a different colored prosthesis for whatever she feels like, but it's mind-controlled fingers. And it's you could pick up bottles, you can open the top of them, all of it. It's really something. It's really wonderful what they're doing in that regard. But stop and think about it. I can only lift so much and do so much with a human arm. But if a prosthetic arm gives me 3 times the strength, why not remove the arm and put a prosthetic arm on it if you need that strength for combat purposes? That's where the mind is going to go. That's an ethical problem, and it's an ethical problem our Army is already talking about. The idea of intentionally augmenting humans is a study topic in the United States military. It's also a study topic in China, Russia, and most any other military in the world. I want to show you some recent unclassified literature that shows we're getting ready for the beast right now, okay? This is from the Army War College, talking about how we're getting ready for what's going to happen next. The operational environment of 2035. Now, that's not that far off. That's 15 years. That means officers in West Point are being taught this right now and trying to figure out how to deal with this. The operational environment of 2035 and beyond will include faster, cheaper, ubiquitous, advanced technologies that shape geography, affect global populations, and enhance the strategic reach of state and non-state actors. This increase of globalization and interconnectedness, verse 15, this image can reach out to anybody anywhere in the world who doesn't worship the beast. Okay? Will drastically change the strategic landscape and challenge accepted norms. Yeah, oh yeah, it will. It's called transhumanism. There are people who are accepting it because they think they'll live a lot longer with this. And then there are people who think that because of what they're talking about, people will no longer be human and be incapable of being saved. Just as the Nephilim were incapable of being saved because they weren't human. The future environment, conflict, and warfare itself will be shaped by factors that roughly follow 6 trends. Speed of human interaction. And you're talking about, human to human? No. Speed of human interaction with computers. How do you assess and obtain information from the battlefield and turn it around quickly? Demographics, urbanization, economic disparity, resource competition, science, technology, and strategic posture. That's from the War College. This is from the Army Chief of Information Office. It says the proliferation and availability of commercial technology may allow adversaries to obtain an operational advantage. Technology, including weapons of mass destruction, advanced sensors, augmented humans. This was written in 2016. Augmented humans, it's already there. Autonomous processes and automated decision-making, AI, will permeate the battlefield. Going further in that particular paper, these interfaces could potentially employ techniques that alter neural function to improve processing, for instance, through the skull using transcranial magnetic stimulation or direct electrical stimulation that uses neural implants. And we know that the beast has a withered eye. So what if they have to do that for the neural implant? Just saying, don't know. Possible. The timing of stimuli could be in response to operational context that the automation recognizes, such as changing routes through buildings or responding or moving through a toxin ingredient. But again, they're talking 2040, only 20 years from now. If the rapture were to happen in the next day, remember, there's a period of time before everything takes off in terms of the tribulation. So this is very real, very possible. This is from the Navy. Scientists have proposed ideas for neurological and physical enhancements of soldiers at the genetic level to help build resistance to battle fatigue, enhance sensing and monitoring in the battlefield, and faster recovering and endure extreme conditions and extended operations. Oh, this isn't science fiction. This is real. This paper was written in 2014. These are unclassified documents, okay? And if it's unclassified, you can only guess what's really going on, okay? I mean, they're talking about this. What are they not talking about? The military is already preparing for working with genetically and cybernetically enhanced humans. They're doing it right now. So you start seeing that this beast is going to be fast like a leopard. It's going to have a global reach. When we start talking about the beast, his follow-on, the false prophet, in verse 15, with this capability of this image coming to life and being able to touch people everywhere, all you're talking about at that point is a thing called a robot with multiple enhancements. And if the person can actually interact with the computer with their mind, then yeah, they can be everywhere at once. Wherever the robot is, they're there. The military is preparing for this day. So is the business world. Here's a textbook for you. Post-human management. The business world is already teaching potential managers how to deal with people who, well, what happens when AI becomes your manager? Let me put it that way. But what they said is many of us now can expect to experience during our working lives a world in which ordinary human beings, you and me, could wind up laboring alongside artificial general intelligences, social robots, sapient networks, that's the beast everywhere at one time, nanorobotic swarms, and human beings with genetically engineered capacities and neurocybernetic implants. By the way, as it pertains to nanorobotic swarms, think in terms of for every soldier, that soldier has 25 drones that are about this big that they can then send out to wherever they need to, and they all have the capability of giving them information and also killing. That's under development right now. In fact, there's a contest at DARPA, if you're interested in entering, to develop that. Basically, we're not in Kansas anymore, are we? I mean, this is all real stuff. It's not science fiction.
You've been listening to the Unsafe Bible with Pastor Ken. As you've been listening to this message, you might have some questions about what you've been hearing from the book of Revelation. That's not uncommon. Revelation is one of those books that can cause you to scratch your head and think, huh? That's why it's so good to have resources that can help you navigate the confusing things that our finite minds can't always fathom. If you'd like some additional direction, head over to the unsafebible.com. and go to the About tab. There, you'll get a better understanding of what our core beliefs are, and you can even fill out a contact form. Someone can then get in touch with you and try to help answer those questions you have. If you're in the Jupiter, Florida area and would like to connect in person, you can look on our website for more details as to where to meet and when. In the meantime, you can find more messages from this series in Revelation by going to the unsafebible.com and looking under the Media tab. Pastor Ken has more fascinating things to share from this book, and be assured, it's no accident that this book is in the Bible. God wants to teach you more about His goodness, His grace, His power, and His authority throughout the prophetic book of the Bible. So be prepared to get strapped in for Prophecy 101 as Pastor Ken continues next time. Our hope is that you'll grow and even be excited for the next edition because of what you learn and are challenged by in the depth of Revelation here on the Unsafe Bible.